Happy Tuesday and welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we welcome Christine Smith on the show. How's everything going today?
Good. Thanks for having me, Matt.
Yeah, great to have you here. Excited to talk about networking and all kinds of stuff in the world of business and the new environment that we're living in. But for the people in the audience who don't know who you are, just give a quick intro and then we'll get into it.
I am the Obi-Wan Kenobi of networking. That's the best intro I can give.
All right, that's it. Networking. I love networking. You love networking.
Mhm.
How did you get to this place now? Like
How did I get here?
how did it get?
I wonder that myself all the time. So having come from some very interesting industries, I was in the car business. I was a financial advisor, and on your first day, they don't give you the book on how to network. Not like a financial advisor. They just say go figure it out.
Yeah,
And unfortunately, that way is not the best way to do that. It's very salesy and makes you feel gross and weird and like a used car salesperson, which I'd already experienced that. So I was like, this is what not to do. And I started figuring that out. It took a long time to figure that out because learning from scratch, no one told me what to do, and realized that the human connection meant way more than anything else. And if I could continue doing what I was doing and focus on that piece, everything else would come. And now here we are.
when they sent you out on that and you were starting, what did you do? I mean, what was your thoughts on how can I find people?
So I was literally told, like, just go network, you'll find clients. That's literally what was said to me. And I'm like, okay, networking is going to events. It's not like I had never done that before, but it was in a very different environment this time around. And I didn't realize the stigma that was behind being a financial advisor. So anytime I introduced myself as a financial rep working at a company, no one wanted to talk to me. And I learned real fast that, okay, well, I probably should stop saying where I work because no one even wants to have a conversation with me. Like, I wasn't even like asking them to be a client or anything, which unfortunately happens at a lot of these events. I was just trying to get to know people, right? So I learned the hard way through all of the rejection that, okay, well, I'm just going to have a conversation. Like, I don't want to talk about what I do because that's not why I'm here. I'm here because I want to get to meet people and I want to know who you are and what you do and if you're going to be valuable to my clients. And then it turned into me being kind of like the conduit for other people. So I'm like, well, my clients need stuff. And if I provide more value, they're not going to leave. And that's kind of what happened. I started just doing that and not focusing on, whoever became a client became a client. That's great. But if I don't have to um, ask for that, I'm just like, hey, here's what I do. If you like it, great. If not, but here's how I'm different. Here's how I separate myself. And that mentality is kind of how I got to be in this major networking conduit role
Yeah,
that I'm in now.
I mean, I have so many. I love networking. I just think it's great. It's fun. It's good for what I'm doing and everything I'm wanting to do, but it's just fun. It's fun to meet new people,
Yeah.
new interesting people, and then it's annoying to meet certain people. Right? Not everyone is great to meet and has that you click with. But there's some like the new wave of networking, and there's still a lot of the old school stuff. I was just at a BNI meeting a couple of weeks ago.
Hmm.
Everyone is coming up with this new wave of networking. I don't think they're all that necessarily all that different. They have the same principles, but here's what I think about networking. And look, if you want to talk about the weather, I'll talk about the weather with you. If you genuinely want to talk about the weather, or if you want to talk about your vacation, I love talking about all that stuff.
Yeah.
Talk about all that stuff but at the end of the day, I need you to understand what I can offer and why I'm here. So it's that hard, like we kind of need to pitch and evolve and get and grow the relationship as we go. I don't know that you can really grow a relationship and then have that stuff, which is
No,
the way
no,
some
you
people
can't. It's
want to.
impossible. And the fact that it was ever taught that you can do that within 30 seconds, like, oh, give your elevator pitch and people will magically want to work with you. And I'm like, who agreed that this was a good idea to do that? It was never a good idea to do that. It still isn't a good idea. No one, people usually laugh in their heads, like, oh, here we go, right? And no one is buying unless somebody happens to come to them at the right time, which is rare. That's such a low percentage. And it's not a numbers game at that point. You're just throwing out and wasting potential opportunities and relationships with people who could be absolutely valuable to you, but they're completely turned off because of the fact that you just pitched them. And I literally I compare networking to dating all the time, and I joke about it. But I'm like, I don't think people understand how serious this is. You need to stop networking like you're looking for one night stands, because that's exactly what people do when they network. They just don't realize it. And I think if people did, they would stop doing it, because you end up being that creepy person at the bar that's like, hey, want to come home with me? And I'm like, what? I don't even know who you are.
Yeah, but again, I still think that there are people out there looking for one night stands, and you're the one who's be like,
Sure.
okay, I'd love
Yeah.
to get into a long term relationship. If someone's tuning in right here, they're not gonna understand what the
Yeah,
hell.
they're not going to understand the context of what we're talking about.
If you want a one night stand, go here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
but there are people who are okay with a one night stand, even though they'd rather have a relationship because that person is not going to be a long term relationship. It's
right,
better for the
right.
long.
And I think, listen, I think there's a happy medium here, right? I think it's not all clients are long term. I don't care what you sell, like that's just not always the case, right? But I think it's also how you present yourself. So if you present yourself as that person that's only looking for that piece, right? You're always going to forever be that way. So even if you move into a different industry or you change jobs or you start your own business, like you're going to have to work uphill now. Like it's going to be that much harder for you because you've already set that brand reputation. Everyone recognizes you as that thing, as that one thing, as that, serial dater or one night stand person type of thing from a sales mentality. But I think going about it in, I always tell people like the barbecue style. Everyone knows how to network at a barbecue very well. It's crazy. Like people aren't just talking about the weather. People are talking, they're more casual. They talk about normal things that we all interact with. And it always crosses the line of business all the time. But when it's in a professional setting, people like lose their minds. They just forget that they can still do that. They're like, I can only talk about these four things. So none of these four things, no one will want to talk to me. And I'm like, it's quite the opposite. How about not talk about those things? And if someone's interested, they'll want to have a one-to-one with you.
Yeah, and I think you can tell the people we've been networking a lot. We've been in the same networking calls. The difference between someone who really wants to help, and that doesn't mean they're not looking for help. They want to help,
Right.
and so I feel as someone who loves to connect people and give help others because I need help, that I can go and maybe pitch sooner than someone would like, because I know myself. I'm willing to just do whatever. So in that case, it's like, again, we're kind of growing together and the relationship as we're sort of talking. It's like happening at the same time.
Right. Right.
It's because you
It's
can't
just
just go to grow to know each other and then.
yeah, I think it's also easier too. Like I think if you've gotten to the point where, and this also kind of goes in line. Oh, there's Caleb. I think this also goes in line with like networking intentionally, right? Like most people aren't going and thinking about why they're going to meet new people. They're only equating it to like, oh, I'm looking for, new connections. I'm like, but are you though? Are you looking for new connections? Or are you looking for new people to siphon off leads from? Because that's not the same thing. And developing these relationships requires some time, but if you're good at it, you can actually do it in a very short amount of time and still have people that are like totally rah-rah cheerleaders for you and are going to talk about you. But if you're not saying things in such a way that's going to stick with somebody, well, what do you expect is going to happen? They're not going to know what it is you do. And if you word vomit on them with your sales pitch, that's not going to be a memorable piece. Saying something else, I call it a whiplash statement. That's what I've been teaching in the last
Yeah.
like 4 or 5 months. Um, that's going to have more of an impact. And that's something that they can share with other people who are going to also talk about you, because that is how that grows. That's how your possibilities of open doors, potential clients, new connections are going to grow much faster. That's the rule of numbers, in my opinion. I think that's what the misconception is. Oh, the rule of numbers, I got to talk to the most amount of people. I'm like, no, you need the most amount of people talking about you. That is the rule of numbers, because
Yeah.
they're taking your reputation and building it out. There's only so many people you can talk to in a day, but someone else talking about your brand solidifies it even more.
You never know
And it
who's going
builds
to
you
say
up
you're here.
as like this big, huge resource person because somebody else is talking about you. You're not the one doing it.
It's well, let's talk about the whiplash, because I was on a call today, and they say, hey, take a minute and tell people who you are and what you do.
Yeah.
And I sort of have the same. I say the same thing. Sometimes I mince words, but for me, it's sort of like naturally describing it. And then there's like professional people who they're like pitching almost like it's a commercial that has to be right.
Yeah.
And to me, it just didn't. I almost didn't care what they were saying because it was too. It just didn't feel like a real. It
Yeah.
didn't feel real to me.
It's the elevator pitch has evolved to just be a pitch, in my opinion. It's not actually who you are, what you do. I literally just don't like that statement at
Yeah.
all.
But even the
So,
whiplash is sort of, I like the tagline. Like it's gimmicky, but
but
it's
it's different
memorable.
though.
Yeah.
So the purpose of a whiplash, and it was just something that I invented on a workshop call, like just came to my mind and I just kind of spit it out and went with it. And then it turned into like a whole big thing. But my whiplash statement is, I'm the Obi-Wan Kenobi of networking, but I tell people, like, if you're going to develop a whiplash statement, it's an I am statement, and it provides a quick visual and emotional cue for other people. So it's going to cause a reaction. It's literally going to cause like that whiplash. And it doesn't have to describe what it is that you do, but it could encompass like who you are as a professional and as a person. So, because some people have multiple jobs, like I own multiple companies, I do different things, right? But having this like foundation piece to kind of start it out, and then people are interested. Oh, well, what does that mean? Oh, do you really like Star Wars? Like, I'm actually wearing a Star Wars shirt today. Like, what is that, right? And that's what you want anyway. You want people to be genuinely interested in what it is that you do, because they're more likely to listen and actually retain the information. So building a whiplash statement around something like that, it also makes it less defensive for other people, because they're always expecting a sales pitch of some sort. But if you're just providing very high level information, you can't give everybody the entire iceberg. No one can just retain that much information. Everybody is a toddler running around chasing butterflies. And if you think for 1 second that if you suddenly give them all the right information, they're going to want to buy from you, you better hope you have their full attention, because you probably don't. They're distracted by a million different things. So that whiplash allows for just enough information. It allows for one of those pieces to hopefully stick. So if you have good keywords and there are good comparisons or visuals, it's more likely to stick. I don't need them to remember the entire sentence. I just need them to remember networking. And it does work. I know for a fact if people talk about networking, my name usually comes up every time.
Yeah, I think, but it's also like it's like a self. You're giving yourself a nickname,
Yep.
which is a little weird, but it's got to stick because people have to acknowledge that it makes sense and that it's you can call yourself whatever you want, right? But
Yeah, I mean, I literally joke with people like, you could be like, the football coach for, advertising or whatever it is, right? You have these really cool comparisons, but it's kind of funny, but it's also interesting, right? And it gets people wanting to learn more, like, oh, well, how did you come up with that? Or, what does that mean? And you're like, oh, well, okay, then you go to the next layer. Okay, well, let me give you a little bit more information, right? I help people do blah, blah, blah. I solve this issue, right? And you're like, yeah, here we go. And then they're more interested. Okay, let's schedule a one-to-one so I can kind of talk you through like how I work with clients. So if you meet someone that might be interested, you can, connect me to them properly. Because that's the other thing too. I hate the whole, well, you need to give me leads or you need to give me referrals, but I honestly think that most people don't know what they're asking for. in a given sense, I literally tell people, go ask your friends, your family, and people that you would consider your top connections, do you actually know what I do? Because I guarantee you they don't. And they're also saying things like if they were to actually tell somebody what it is that you do, it might not be accurate. That's a problem. How do you expect people to get leads or referrals or whatever you want to call it for you if they don't even have the right information to start?
Yeah, and
You don't even know like who you're looking for, right?
people don't like it's like a game of telephone too because
Right.
they don't understand. It depends on what you're doing. I like my mom probably doesn't understand fully what I do. She loves to help. It's great. And even just when I'm around people and they're talking about it, like I'm passing out stuff and I'm next to someone I know and they'll chime in on it. And I'm like, well, no, that's not really what we do. I mean, it's not that we don't do that, but that's if you have 30 seconds to tell someone that's not what
Right.
what we want to
Right.
portray it as. Having to hear it, many times, that's a tough thing to do. That's a tough thing to do.
It's hard. And that's why I said the whiplash statement is perfect because you're forcing yourself to have your business be more palatable to the average person because how we talk usually when we're really good at something, we speak in doctor, what I would call like a doctor term. We're very passionate and we speak in the terms of whatever business that we're involved in, right? But that doesn't always translate to people who have never had experience in that type of field. Even if it's something that we think that everyone should know about, everyone doesn't know about it. And we can't assume that people hear and react to things the way that we want them to. So, in order for that to happen, you have to be a really good translator or you have to be a really good storyteller. So, that again is the whiplash statement and you're giving a little small blip of a story that is easily translatable for the average person. Like most people know what Star Wars is, right? And the whole Obi-Wan Kenobi of networking thing kind of came out of somebody calling me a Jedi. And then I just kind of like went with it and it's kind of stuck ever since. So I've just kept with it. And I don't have to continue to explain myself all the time. I hate selling myself. I don't want to do it anymore. It's a
Yeah,
waste of my time. I'd rather have other
you have
people
to
do it.
all the time, though. I mean, even when I was working back in the day, I'd be like, I'm the VP of sales for Matt Wolff, and that's what I was. I was always selling for Matt Wolff. My whiplash is I consider myself a unicorn disruptor. Got to figure out what that means, but um, I think it's a good start. The networking is what we're talking about here. We're talking about this because you also have um, the companies, right? So riplEFX. Talk about the riplEFX and what you guys are doing there in the
Yeah.
networking world.
So riplEFX is a networking support platform. We started right before a pandemic without realizing that the world was going to be shut down. All of our groups originally were only in person, and they were pretty local to upstate New York, which is where I'm located. And then once pandemic happened, I just moved everything to virtual because I was like, just because we're at home doesn't mean business should stop. And it kind of stuck that way. And we ended up getting members from all over the world at that point that were interested in trying to find things that were a little bit different. So our groups are very different from anything else that exists out there. So, and the reason is because we're not lead focused. It doesn't mean business doesn't happen. I can tell you a lot of business happens within riplEFX, but it's done very, very differently. So it's a very relationship focused. It's very support focused. But we also talk about things outside of, oh, hey, who are you looking to sell this week? It's like, well, what are you working on? What are you struggling with? Because some of those things might prevent you from having good conversations with people who might buy from you. So we talk about kind of all the things. Um, we do events as well. We have workshops for our members. We have monthly groups. That's something new that we started offering right before summer started. So people can come once a month. They don't have to come every week if they don't have time, even though I think you should be networking every week. But hey, you can't network every week, no problem. But hey, here's a every 4 weeks we'll see you, and it's structured accordingly so everyone gets the most out of that meeting. And for some of those groups, we have people from all over.
Yeah, I I've been to a few of them, so I can speak to it. And but there are other groups that I'm not saying doing exactly what you're doing, but I think everyone they it's funny because when we talk about BNI, which was like that was the networking thing. and the grow, like, and trust and all this stuff.
Yeah.
The stuff that people are doing, it's not that different. It's all about relationships and also, being someone who can help, right? But also, you know, being able to form those relationships. There's a lot of stuff, other networking groups out there. It's hard to, like, how do you know which is the right one? Because if you're seeing the same people over and over again, is that as beneficial to hopping around to some of these?
So I think like my thoughts are you should have a consistent base. So you should always be meeting new people. But again, we only have 24 hours in the day, and it's
Yeah,
impossible for you to meet people in other circles, right? So if you have a home base of people that you speak with, whether it's on a weekly basis, biweekly, monthly, they're also meeting people, right? Now you have the opportunity to jump circles and jump ponds because of just the fact that other people are doing the same thing, and then we're coming together and saying, well, who did you meet with last week, and who did you meet with last month, and who are your top people that you think other people should meet with? And it's literally how I've been interconnected with people all over this entire planet without actually having myself to do that. It's literally
right.
just because somebody said, oh, hey, you should meet this person, and that person gets circled around the riplEFX groups, which is always funny. And then it goes from there, like, oh, okay, like I want to meet this person and that person should meet this person, and then they get heavily, it's like the old not telephones, but like the operators, right? Like
Yeah,
literally like that, like, hold on, let me just page you to this person, and hold on, let me just move you to this person. Oh yeah, they're in New Zealand, let me connect you to that person. Oh, they're in UK, hold on. Right? And that's what I feel is what is missing in a lot of these groups, is the fact that nothing is happening outside of the group. So you meet, you have your meeting, right? Okay, maybe leads were exchanged, maybe they were, but no work is being done after. No one's thinking about you after. People shut or okay, I'm done. I had my meeting. I did what I was supposed to. No, that's not how it should work. It should be ongoing, because if people are thinking about you all the time and you're doing the same thing, you never know, opportunities come at times where you're not having a meeting or when you don't see those people. So, hey, I want to make sure I'm still connecting to these people regardless if I don't see you for another 3 weeks.
yeah. And I think, I mean, I think I do a good job of the networking outside of groups, meaning not even in a group, like meeting and networking with people I've never met through a group, but outside. But that's the great point, is setting up those calls afterwards, right? Which you guys
Mhm.
encourage a lot, which is,
Yeah.
I've been in some networking groups where I haven't had any calls outside. And part of it is because here's the controversial thing, in my opinion. And I don't know if Brian's still in the audience, but I was talking to him on a call today. We had a great call yesterday, and we had met through networking people, like in a group I'm not even a part of at the time. And so I have four, like there's four different ways that we can connect. I help you, you help me, we help each other,
Hmm.
or we can't really help each other, but there's just something about, like, we vibe together. It's
Right.
a good conversation. We just enjoy, talking or doing whatever. And I'm okay with any one of those four, and understanding that there's plenty of people out there who can help me and I can't help them at all, and plenty of people that I can help that they can't help me at all. The issue with these networking events sometimes is someone like me, I think sort of everyone probably can help in a way without almost stepping on toes. Whereas if you're in a group and there's a real estate agent or a finance, stuff you talked about, like I'm a financial planner, insurance, it's just, I think it's more about who do I know who maybe could help, and it's sort of like staying in touch. So I think that's a tough thing for me to enter
I
in a networking group.
Yeah, I think that's something too, but I also feel like that's a big misconception of networking is people are like, "Well, I don't have anyone for you," but that's one layer, right? Like if you have a financial advisor in your group, like the financial advisor, everyone else in the group shouldn't just be asking for that one thing anyway, because that makes it a lot harder for everybody else. Because if you're not around people who are like, I always hear like realtors are guilty of this, and so are advisors. Oh, I'm looking for a first time home buyer. Well, no one in your group is probably going to have access to that unless someone they know said, oh, my husband and I are looking for a house because we don't want to be in our apartment anymore. Okay, ding, that may correlate, right? Instead, they should be saying and talking about the transitions. What is causing that first time home buyer? Like what is happening for that person to be qualified as a first time home buyer, right? They graduated college, they just got married, they have another kid, like they moved jobs, they relocated, like saying those keywords to you now, you're probably going to remember that more because of the fact that it wasn't just I'm looking for first time home buyers. Same thing with financial advisors. They a lot of times I hear it all the time. I literally get so upset when I hear these things. Oh, I'm looking for people who have, a net worth of or assets over $250,000. Well, most people don't share just openly that information.
Yeah.
So good luck trying to find that.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, CPAs are my go-to person. And I'm like, you shouldn't just be after CPAs and accountants. There's other people who are working with those people. Tell me more about them. How did they get $250,000 in the bank and not have access to an advisor? What is going on in their life that they should be talking to somebody? Are they worried about the stock market? Are they worried about investments? Are they worried about their future? Like, what type of person are they? Are they very articulate? Are they an engineer? Like, are they married? Other things that other people who are not within that space are going to hear, experience, or interact with. And if those things were talked about, you should also be talking about, well, who else is working with these people? So going back to like the realtors, for example, oh, I want to work with people who are first time home buyers who are going through these changes, right? Having babies, they're getting married, they're in a new job. Okay, so who else is helping those people? Well, people who are having kids might be talking to doulas. They might be talking to birth coaches. Well, those are people you should be talking to as well, because that is a good connection for that mortgage person, but realtors, because of that transition. Oh, hey, you should be connected to that. Okay, great. Now I know what I can look for. But if that discussion never happened or you're not thinking that way, how does the web work? No one talks about the web. And I'm like, if you talk about the web, there is an infinity amount of people that you could be intertwined and interconnected with that no one else would have even guessed or thought about, just because we're always in that one line. That one line is the only thing people talk about. Well, it's easy. It's, that's how it should be. And I'm like, but no one's going to help you. You're going to not get leads at all because you're talking about things that the other people can't help you with.
Yeah. And some of the best connections I've made are people who are almost competitors of each other, where they can brainstorm and they can bounce ideas and share best practices, which is, that's what people join conventions for, right? It's like
Right.
we're all with best practices, like, hey, what worked for you? That's almost just as valuable when you can get those type of people and not. I just feel like the networking, that there's a lot more people who they're not as engaged or as okay with it, where it might just be them. You might just there's just times where you're going to give more than you get. It's just,
Oh yeah. And I
okay
think
with
that
that. A lot of people aren't.
a lot of people aren't, but I also think that what they ask for isn't good. That's why they're not getting a lot out. So when they do give something, they almost feel there. I think there's also that like, oh, I have a little bit of scarcity mindset. I'm really worried that if I do blah blah blah, it's not going to equate to the abundance that I so desire, right? But if people approached it very differently, like every single person that you talk to, there should be fruit out of that meeting. And that fruit could simply be that that person is going to talk about me. I will never work with them. They'll never be a client. They'll never connect me to anybody. But that person is going to talk about me in some shape or form if they hear those keywords again. It always happens. But no one thinks about it like that because they're not planning out. Most people are not planners at all. And they're like, I had the meeting, it's done, that's it, right? Okay, nothing came out of it because no one purchased from me. But I'm like, if you thought about it as every single person that you come into contact with, whether it's virtually or in person, you have these like little burrs, like if you're walking through like the woods, you get stuck with burrs, right? How do you do that? How do you leave burrs behind so they get attached to other people? Because the more you do that, the more ripples you actually have. And it doesn't matter what fourth or sixth degree someone heard about you. It's just the fact that they heard about you. And the likeliness of them purchasing is going to increase astronomically just because of the fact that somebody else mentioned it
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah. It's, I find that even just not in networking events, but in general, like they talk a lot about a big game when others can hear them, because that's
Oh,
what people
sure.
hear. You get like, even just tell you, to make it seem like they're going to do. The big problem on people not following through with what they say they're going to do. The problem is people are lauded because everyone thinks they're the helpful ones, and there's no real consequence for the bad behavior that goes on there, whether it's ghosting or anything else. That's a
I
big problem
mean,
in the people.
yeah, I would say the consequences though, reliability, right? Like if you aren't putting effort into a relationship, well, the relationship is probably not going to bloom into anything, most likely, right? Just like a spousal relationship or a friendship. If somebody keeps inviting you to something and you don't show up, or you say you're going to come and then you blow them off,
Yeah,
the same result is going to happen. They're eventually going to stop inviting you to things. They're eventually going to stop
yeah,
circling you around those opportunities. And that's what I tell people. I'm like, listen, you don't know who's listening. You don't know where this is going to go. Do the same thing, right? You put the same amount of effort in, you put more in with those that you get it back, right? The same energy is returned. The ones that it's not, okay, well, that's it. You put effort in, you're done, right? You've put your time in. But again, you don't know who people know. And you also don't know how people are showing up. You don't know what kind of day somebody had. I always really focus on trying to lead with kindness as often as
yeah,
possible, even in networking, because I just don't know where someone's at that day. I don't know if they're like on the verge of getting a divorce and they're just trying to hold back from not like having a meltdown, or they want to leave their job, or they're trying to start their business and it's not working out the way that they had planned, right? And they don't have the same capacity. I know that my capacity for things is like extremely high. Like I'm able to do all these things because I really don't know, but that's just how I'm programmed and I'm really good at it. Not everybody can do that, right? So if me asking something of someone else and they're at max capacity for them for their, how they function, okay, that's okay. Well, hopefully I get that eventually. Hopefully that connection comes in, or I'll send them a reminder, or it just won't happen. Like that's okay. Kind of stinks because they said they would, but
yeah. And then the whole thing is like calling people on it, which people need to be called on their
yes.
stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Just
If you
friendly
call them
reminder.
on it, then you're the one who is the asshole.
Yeah, I mean, I try to be nice about those things. Like, hey, I'm just, you said you were going to make that intro. Usually people just forget. That's why I do things like live usually. When somebody asks me to do something, I'm like, hold on a second. I'll do it right then there. Because I'm like, if it doesn't get done then, it won't happen. But I also leave the boundary of like, hey, you can follow up with me if this didn't happen. And I think that's the other thing. People aren't setting the boundaries with their network. So, hey, I have these expectations. If you're in my network, this is kind of what I expect of you. If you're in within these 3 layers of circles, I'm not saying you're the closest of the close, but if you're within that circle
No,
and
you're expected.
I trust you to do things. So, and that might mean making an introduction when you say you were going to, or alerting me of an event, or tagging me on something that you need my attention on, because I may not see all the things that you're doing just because of I'm busy doing my stuff.
Yeah, I had people that I've referred to others who didn't follow up
Same.
or acted rudely, and the importance of you being you and doing the things that you do, because the person who I sent them to is like, no, I don't blame you. I know who you are, right? So I know you, so I know that you were doing it because you thought it would be good, and you can't,
Right.
look, I told the guy too. I made a call to the person. You can't do that. Like it's
Right.
not. First of all, it's not any way to treat a human being, but it's not. You're the one who needs work. You're the one who needs people to help you, and you got to be. Make it easy for people to help you. That's what it should be, just in life in general. But
Yeah,
the
yeah, and
other
I I think the defense thing is there still too. Like people just get. I know I've made introductions before, and people are like, "Why did you introduce me to that person?" I'm like, "Why are you even questioning this right now? If I introduce you to somebody, there's a reason. You have to figure that reason out that, because that reason it might be deeper than my original connection. I'm thinking like, hey, these people have some similar personalities, or wow, they're I just feel like they should be a match somewhere. Where that is, I don't know. But I
Yeah,
always am weird. I'm just like, why are you questioning this? Like,
I think that's a good point, but also I equate it like in the dating world because people used to just set people up like, hey, you're single, she's single, you
right,
like this, you like that, and you're like, okay, but there's more. That's harder. Like for me, when I was doing that, it's like there's a lot involved there. You got to talk to them. You got to probably go on a date to find out. In the business world, it's just like, what do I got to do? Take an email, read an email, take a 20-minute conversation to see.
exactly,
You're going to
exactly.
strike out plenty, but the people who are really genuine about it they're gonna give you winners.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I feel like at this point when somebody questions me on that, I'm like, why are you like, really? You're questioning me on this? I literally take the extra time to make the effort because I think there's an opportunity there. I thought about you, and I'm thinking about like your business, or something that you told me a while ago that triggered the reason for this introduction. And that's the thing, because now I'll be more, I may not be more deterred from making that intro for that person who made that comment. And it's very interesting. It's a very hard place, and I know that that's one of the many reasons why people don't like to network, because it's become way harder than I think it needs to be. It literally should just be like, hey, we're here to support each other, we're here to interconnect. How things work after doesn't matter. Like, I don't care if you don't do business with me or my friend or whoever I
Yeah,
connected
but
you
people
to.
do. You're putting yourself out there, and you're
That, yeah, and that's the thing that's really like tough is, you put the time and effort, and that's why like I usually lead with like disclaimers, like, hey, listen, if this person I'm connecting you to is rude or they don't respond, like, listen, this is a no reflection of me. I thought this person could either help you, be
yeah,
a connector, but you might have caught them on a bad day, but just let me know, because if they do that, I will never connect them again.
right. No, you won't. Let's talk about networks in general. LinkedIn is obviously the huge thing right now. It's all about networking, and it's mostly business. I think there's opportunity for outside of business because it's become social media in a sense. But I also look at it similar to my Facebook. Like there's people on Facebook who I don't really know. I might have met, haven't talked to them in 25 years. I'm connected to so many people on LinkedIn that I don't really know everyone. But
Yeah.
certainly, if you're connected to them and someone accepts a connection, there should be some type of expectation that you're going to want to either talk to them or introduce someone to them. Or it's weird that I get connections but then they don't respond to you, or they're not receptive to, like, then why connect anyway?
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, there's no one understands what they're doing. Everyone is out there just like, well, hopefully I connect with these people. They're looking to have the most amount of followers. They're not looking to build relationships. I mean, I get inundated with, DM requests on a regular basis on LinkedIn, and I will respond to these people, right? Hey, this seems automated. If you're interested in connecting, can you let me know? I never hear back. I'm like, well, clearly that was a bot, right? And then I've had situations where they'll respond back and they're like, oh, well, were you interested in jumping on a call? I'm like, well, is this a call about what you're trying to sell me? Or is this a call because you want to get to know me? And I'm like, what you have sounds interesting, but I need to understand what you're offering. And I'm like, I don't want this to be a sales pitch. Like, I have no problem learning about what it is you do, but I would really suggest changing your DM approach, because this is going to wholeheartedly shut a bunch of people off. I'm going to respond just because I'm the weirdo that responds. And then they don't respond. I'm like, really? I
Well,
said I
that's
was
the thing.
here to
I
help
respond
you.
to everyone. Like 99% of the emails I get, I respond to. Some just they don't deserve a response.
Oh, yeah.
Some people do literally, like, they personalize it, and I try and give them advice as to how it could work. But you really do never know. So I don't know that I should punish someone because they don't know how to do that. I
Right.
want to look at what it possibly could be. So I have given some people, and sometimes that bites you in the ass. They keep responding, or they don't understand. Like,
Yeah.
it's okay, it's fine. I don't mind doing that.
Yeah.
Like, how do you handle this spam or I would say like it's a different thing if I just reach out today to someone for an organization who has events. I say I'd like to share how we can help enhance your fan experience. Like to me, and I've never talked to this person before. To me, that's okay. I'm not trying to sell them like, because not everyone could use what I'm doing. It's not like I got today, hey, could you use social media help? Or like you could send that to literally everyone. I
Yeah.
can't send this to everyone. If I sent this to someone who worked at public supermarkets, it wouldn't make any sense. So it's not like, so I'm targeting something and it's more of a soft sell, something that they either need or really are doing something that's very similar as opposed to something else. So how do you handle the other ones?
I mean, I just try and like help. I literally I do the same thing. Like I know that they're getting wrong information or they're being taught just to kind of blast out. And I'm like, hey, if I stop and just, hey, listen, I'm just going to give you some friendly advice. I don't think this approach is going to work for you. Have you thought about, and I'll give them like verbiage back.
Yeah.
Some people respond and they're nice about it. I've even gotten on calls with people and I'm like, listen, do you mind if I be like straightforward with you? And they're like, yeah, yeah. And, and I'll tell them, I'm like, listen, I know this is awkward and I know you may not want to talk to me after this, but I just hope this will be better for you moving forward. So that you get more responses. Like you're going to catch way more meetings. And literally, I tell people, I'm like, listen, I started financial advising with 8 meetings a week because that's what was required. By the end of my tenure, I had a consistent 25 meetings a week. That's 3 times what was even necessary. And that's crazy. That's not by any means required. But I'm like, if you do it the right way, you will have no problem getting people to talk to you and getting people to actually follow through with whatever it is that you offer. But
I think
it's
so.
all in the approach. It's all in how you have conversations. Most people are terrible at communication.
Yeah, it's a combination of, for me, it's going to be a combination of how I act and react and present
Yeah,
myself
react.
and communicate, and then a combination of what I'm offering too, because it is important for both. I do think you can lack in a little bit of the communication and me selling if the product is good or needed. It's like, all right, we got to look at this anyway. That's why I think in some respects, like poor salespeople are like they're rewarded. It's just the consumer is not great. So there's a lot of bad salespeople out there who do well. It doesn't mean they're good at sales. They're either just in the right market, they're selling the right thing. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, there's no secret sauce,
No, there's no
unfortunately.
playbook.
Like
No playbook.
everyone thinks there is, but there's not. It's literally the people that I feel like it's the people that do well. They just know how to have a conversation.
How many networking groups do you think someone should belong to? Because I think just doing one is not, unless
No,
it's,
one isn't enough, and I don't think you should be a part of one organization either. I mean, I recommend to all my riplEFX members you shouldn't just be in riplEFX. I usually recommend only ONLE. They're based out of the UK. I'm actually a part of their group. They only meet once a month, so I think stuff like that is really good. You should have like stuff throughout the month. I'm not saying you should necessarily do something every week, but you should have your set meetings where you're seeing some of the same people on a regular basis because that helps hold you accountable because there's going to be days that you wake up that you're like, I don't want to do anything today. I don't want to talk to anybody. And then you have that meeting on the calendar and you're so tempted to cancel, but then you show up, you feel way better after.
oh yeah. You
And
just
then
never know. Timing is everything. Like,
timing is everything, but I think it just has to be a part of your schedule. So, having stuff 4 or 5 times a month. So you have like your networking groups that you're a part of, whether it's all from the same or you have like, 2 different places that you go to for that. I don't recommend going really much out of three different groups, like 3 different groups in the sense of like 3 different associations or organizations that you're a part of that you meet with on a regular basis. And that's on top of any events that you go to. So whether virtual or in person, you should be doing those a couple times a month. I myself, I mean, I'm in a weekly riplEFX group, and then I'm in a couple of the monthly ones, and then I do only as well, and then an
how,
occasional.
we didn't get to talk about this, but what are you doing outside of the networking? Because you do other stuff outside of
Oh
networking.
yeah, I do a lot of other stuff. I am the marketing director for Flight Creative, so I handle all of the social media strategy. Our team handles, deployment, the design, and reporting, and all of that. I actually build out the ideas and all of the copy for that. And then I do also additional marketing strategy for clients. So helping them plan events, figure out just new third person perspective on their business for ideas and getting people to have a buzz about what it is they're doing. I just opened, well, we haven't officially opened yet, but we are opening up a co-working space. So my second official business, I opened with my two partners who actually own Flight Creative. We're opening up a co-working space in upstate New York. It's probably going to be one of the biggest co-working spaces in the capital region. We'll have 6,700 square feet. We'll be opening probably in the next 2 weeks.
And that's a WeWork type of situation.
Yep. So that's another type of co-working space, but Hangar Coworks is what we're going to be called. It'll be a little bit different than some of the models that are out there. We're fortunate that we have riplEFX. So the networking component in the co-working space is going to be run by Ripple. And our platform is going to be based off of, again, the support. So we'll actually have a concierge. There'll be the interconnectability aspect. There'll be workshops. There'll be development opportunities for the professionals that are here. And they have a support network. So there's no way that people can't survive here because they have people that are going to support them.
This is a new venture, or this is a franchise?
New,
but could be franchise. You definitely go out to other locations depending on the success or.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the goal, is for us to expand essentially along. We have a Northway and a big route out west. So
yeah. All right. Is there any value to? There's so many networking groups, and I actually know a bunch. Is there value to maybe combining groups to have more people in the one for those who have similar ideas and framework?
sometimes, if you're doing, I mean, I know BNI, for example, some of their groups are, they have 70 people, right? And they're like, oh, well, this is great because we get the most amount of, opportunity. But I feel like when you have a lot of people like that, you can't get as close unless you're forced into smaller subgroups, which doesn't typically happen in at least the BNI structure. So our groups max out at 15 for our monthly groups because I feel like that's a good number, especially virtual, to be able to get to know people. And even our weekly groups, they max out at 10. So, if you're in any groups that are out there, I would keep them small, on the smaller side, just because the intimacy allows for people to share more. They feel more comfortable offering other pieces of information that they may not, under normal circumstances, share, just because of the larger group mentality. Only the other networking group that I'm in, usually groups are 20 to 25. It usually hovers around there and they kind of cap it at that. But groups are usually around the 15 range as well. And you don't feel like you're in such a huge room that you get lost, because not everybody feels the same when they're in the room with a group of people. So, you want to try and offer somewhat of a happy medium. And it doesn't mean that oh, well, if we have more people, we have more ideas, but you might also miss out on some of the other people whose voices aren't as big. So, keeping those groups small, but having multiples. That's why I tell people you should be in multiple groups in general. Whether you're in 3 riplEFX groups or 2 riplEFX groups, and then you join only, or you join whatever, a BNI group or whatever. So if you want to get a mix of different people, that's fine, but don't go crazy and having groups of 300 on a regular basis, because you're not going to get as much done.
Yeah, I do agree. I do agree with that. I like the randomness of who am I going to speak with in a group too. So I mean, there's so many different ways to do it. Is
I think
there?
it depends on the structure for sure.
And I love online. Like I said, we sit in a call like this and we can talk to anyone anytime. With COVID, not away, but we're a lot more, everyone's more comfortable with it. It just kind of is what it is. I would say the majority of people are fine to go back in person. What do you see with in-person events, networking, like not just to have to meet every day, but more of an event to sort of just grow networks.
So if you're trying to figure out like what events to go to, I would go to events that are unusual or atypical. So um, they're not a typical like mixer, because those are usually where just people stand around. And you need to go to it. Those don't work. Because what happens is people stand around with people that they know, and they don't go outside of that. And if they do, it's very temporary, and they're usually like, oh, here's my card, or they're just after, business cards. So go to events that are like atypical, that require that are going to have like an activity, or ones that are, deemed a little bit different. I mean, I run events like that specifically for the purpose of forcing people to meet other people and ask different questions, not just, oh, hey, what do you do for a living? That would be my suggestion. Virtual events are a little bit more challenging with that, but go to stuff that's like, oh, it's a virtual game night, or, virtual bingo, or whatever, something different. You're probably going to get a much better result after that.
Yeah, I think also just you never know who's going to be of value to you. We go in with these
Yep.
expectations, like this person would be a great contact, and they might be, but that's what I like about going to things that aren't maybe necessarily what you think might be perfect for you, and talking to the person. One of the advantages of online, because in person it's like you got to, you might not know who they are, or you might, and then you'll be like, I got to go up to them, right? It's just there's some of that involved in the online, but generally if you're online, you're there to talk and you're there to meet the people, and if you're in a room
Right.
together, you're not going to ignore someone. You might
Right.
even go to a different table depending on how your venue is done. So it's probably helped people, and I think it should help you to do it in person. But just talking about your thing, whether it doesn't even have to be a pitch, it just be having conversation about it, really should help you. It could be help you in public speaking. I mean, there's so many advantages to all these meetings
Yeah.
and happy hours even the happy hours, just like, hey, there was organizations that said, hey, Friday we're going to do a happy hour, and we kind of just talk about whatever. And like you said, you sprinkle in it's a barbecue type. You'll
Right.
talk about what's going on, especially if you're all in the same world. But so much practice, which is what people really need to do. It sounds weird,
Yeah.
but practice talking to people,
They
practice
do.
pitching, practice networking.
Yep.
Um,
And even network in places that don't seem like you can network at. So I don't think people realize, like, go do something community oriented, like to help the community. Let's say that, that's something that you're interested in, like that's still networking. You're still going to rub elbows with somebody that might be beneficial to your business. And like you said, you just never know who you're going to meet. You don't know what doors are going to be open because you did that. I've even done, I play beach volleyball at a restaurant local to me. And there's like, how many teams are there? So there's 3 different times of the day. There's probably like 18 teams. Like, and we play all of them, right? And then we have like like semifinals or whatever at the end of the year. And I'm like, that's such a huge networking opportunity. Like, we're there to play sports, but like we go out sometimes as a team. We'll go like celebrate because there's a restaurant bar right there. And I tell people, I'm like, you don't understand. You're going to always meet people, but how you develop those relationships is up to you. And it doesn't always have to start in a professional setting. Like, start a golf league, go golf with people, or go play
right.
tennis with people like that you just met. Like, there's nothing better than golfing 9 holes with somebody that you don't know.
We did,
You're kind of stuck with them and making jokes about, like, oh, there's another one in the woods, right? Like, do stuff like that. Like, that's still networking, but you don't have the pressure of, having to give your business card or business pitch to somebody.
yeah, we played. I mean, I played adult kickball and adult
Yeah.
dodgeball, and then you just sort of socialize. Just being social is really all it is.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
online poker, and ended up getting a job from someone who just by randomly talking about whatever it is.
Right.
And so you just never. It could be anyone. You're on a plane. I grew up a lot more shy, and my shyness was really more around knowing that the person you're talking to is interested in talking to you, which is really what it's about. That's what the shyness was. So if they're interested in talking to you, or at least open to it, and it's not going to end up being like, why are you talking to me? But it's almost like having to do it everywhere. Like every time I'm at an event, and when you're on the plane, if depending, like my brother, my grandma, they would like want people to hear them and bring into the conversation, talk to anyone. And I'm still not at that point, but I do think there's value. I mean, I'm always wearing Ticket Time Machine stuff for hopefully it'll generate conversation. So it's just network almost anywhere you go.
Yeah.
You just never know who's going to be a valuable part of you. And also you never know who you can help too. Like it's great that the feeling you get when you've helped someone connect and see it grow. It's a great feeling.
Yeah.
You brag like, hey, I introduced these people. They got married, right? I mean, that's sort of the pride you feel in it.
Yeah. But you got to be that type of person though too. Not everybody cares about putting effort into helping others. And for me, that's a deal breaker. Like if you're not that type of person, like you have no interest in helping other people to whatever degree that might be, you're not going to be in my network.
I think you can tell. I mean, I was I was in a call on some of these calls where you're just like, I can tell this person is, but they need help. Even people aren't willing to help. They do need help. And look, I need a lot of help to get where I am today, which is nowhere where I need to be. And I still need a lot more help, but I got a lot of help to get even to this point. So it's like, we should all think about what needed to happen to get us to this point, and then offer that to the other person you see who was where you were.
Right.
You might have a shortcut, not like, it's almost like the whole loan thing. Like, why should they get their loans forgive when I had to pay my loan back? I'm like, all right, well, it's just, that's the timing of it.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't work out that way.
I did. But you know what? Now these people get an opportunity to do.
Right. And what are they going to do with it? I mean, the same could be said that what if education is free eventually, right? College is free like it is in some places. Well, are people going to, probably people are going to complain and say, well, they should have to pay because I did. It's like, no, opportunities change all the time. And but what could that do for these people? Because, no offense, but gas isn't 50 cents anymore.
I don't know if when I was driving, it was 99 cents. I don't know. I'm a little older than you, I think.
You might be, but I remember it was $1 a gallon or whatever. I remember
99 cents when I first started. I remember driving. That was many, many, many years ago. If you could have I asked about Mount Rushmores, but let's say you could have a dinner table, a meeting, and you could invite any 4 people from a business sense. This is a business sense to add value or to your network or whatever. Who would you invite?
Of course you asked me this because
which is going to roll into the last question. If you can meet and spend a day with anyone in the world, you can do whatever, they just have to be alive and you can't be related to them. Who would that be? So this sort of ties in. One is like on a business thing, and the other one's like, hey, this would just be cool to hang out with because it's who I would love to spend time with.
Well, one would actually be the CEO of Bumble.
Okay.
Bumble is a dating app. It's owned by a woman CEO.
I've reached out to her to see if she'll come on here because I actually met my wife on Bumble.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She's a Wolff too, right? Wolff, spelled differently.
Yeah, I can't remember what her name is. And then what's the other person? The one that owns Spanx.
I was just going to say Spanx. And then the Hint Water too might be a good one. You know her?
Yeah. There's another guy too. I keep wanting to say it's Zappos, but that's not who it is because I know that guy passed away. There's another CEO. He was the guy that raised their low salary to $75,000 for every employee.
Yeah.
And everyone thought he was crazy, and their production went up like crazy. And
it's Dan Price. I've actually had a conversation with him.
Oh, really?
And he's one of those guys who people love to hate online. I'd love to have a talk with him because I think there's some behind the story stuff that's not all. I do like what he's doing. I do like it. And we were like, I said, hey, let's join the revolution together because this is back in the day. So I had a conversation with him. I'd love to have him on the show. I've invited him. He hasn't responded, but he'd be a good person to talk about too.
Yeah, I literally think about, some of the CEOs that are out there and what they're doing for their employees, and I'm like, that is the example that I want to lead with, right? Like you're paying people well, you're treating people well, you're offering that retention opportunity.
Yeah.
And I just think it's just good for business, it's just good for everybody.
Yeah. I aim to be that CEO that people want to work in the company that
Right.
they work for, and not just because they're paying me a lot of money, because just people could get that money and they'd be very unhappy with what they're doing.
Oh, sure.
So, give me the one person you spend a day with anyone. Who would it be that you can't be related to them and they have to be alive? We've had some interesting answers.
Yeah, I mean, it would probably be one of those three people,
Okay.
honestly. I would want to spend the day with. I mean,
If
I
you
know, I
can't
know.
pick any of them, who is it going to be?
It would probably be the CEO of Bumble
Yeah,
that I'd be interested in. Yeah,
Whitney
I mean,
Wolf.
I'm not opposed to like, Elon Musk either. I know people, there's hit or miss whether you like him or hate him, but like the guy is a really fascinating business person, and it's very fascinating to watch. It would be cool to just like, can I just take a tour and just watch you talk to people all day? Because how you like watching him think about things is like very fascinating to me. And he's like hyper intelligent, and I like watching smart people do stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to reach out to her and say that we mentioned her on the show. So we'll see what happens there. But really appreciate your time today. I know it's great to see people like you who want to help others connect and are always trying a way to make just doing business more fun, but also make it easier and more successful. So check out riplEFX.us if you want any more information. You'd be happy to join any of their meetings just to check it out and see how it is. And then looking forward to seeing how it all works with Hanger Coworks, the new business sharing. What's the best?
It's
I
a
don't
co-working space. Yeah.
co-working space. We don't want to. It's like going to be like the Kleenex when they say, "Give me a Kleenex," instead of always saying the name of the company that everyone knows.
Right.
Co-working space. If you're in the Upper New York area, could be something for you. If you know someone up there, let everyone
Right.
know that this is a new thing, and then who knows? It could be all over the U.S. by next year. Who knows? We never know. So check out all that stuff, and great to chat with you. And we got another episode tomorrow. So tune into the Wolff Den, and we'll talk to you soon. Everyone have a great night, and share. Tell someone else, someone that you know that could help them today. We're going to start the networking web. All right. Have a good one.